Hey there, welcome to another episode of Life Design Plus, where we are mastering the art of living your authentic life. Now, I know it's been a while since I've had a guest. I've been focusing on the Daily Note podcast as of late, but I could not think of a better guest to bring back guest episodes than my friend Breanna Rae Blaney. I've known Bree for a couple years because of her role in the finance space, and I asked her to join me last year, not knowing that she had something exciting up her sleeve. She asked me to wait until the new year until her new venture had launched, and launched it has. Bree launched the Anya Institute for Human Revolution. It is now out. You can now join it, and we're going to talk about what exactly it is. So you got to hop into the episode to hear more about her new venture. But in this conversation, we're going to talk a lot about spirituality, personal growth, finding our true authentic selves, how we can get there, what that means, what that has meant for Bree, and why that has shaped the work she's doing going forward. She has a mission that is way bigger than her. It is a mission that I share with the work that I'm doing, and I'm excited to have another peer in my profession moving in the same direction, trying to help more people, not her words but mine, find and live their authentic life, align their money with that life, and find a much happier, more purposeful life. And if we do that for more people, then the world becomes a better place. So her and I are walking parallel paths that are very, very close together, and it was exciting for me to hear more. I just knew what this business was from the website. I had not got a chance to hear from her yet, so I'm learning about the company alongside you in this episode, and I'm really excited about what she has coming down the road. So with that, I will get out of the way. We'll hop into this episode. Be sure to check the show notes so you can find the Anya website. You can follow Bree and keep up to date with what she's doing. And if it resonates with you, I highly encourage you reach out, talk to her, and learn more about the Anya Institute. All right, let's get to the episode. Be the change you wish to see in the world. And Gandhi is our quoter. What do you think when you hear that?
To me, it really is just this essence of we have to take responsibility for our own life, and we have to take responsibility for the world that we live in. And I think in today's society, it can be easy to feel small. There's so much media and so much noise, and I think we're constantly, on our phones, and it can feel like the world is really big, and you're really small. And to me, the essence of that quote is that the world that we live in is really a reflection of our collective inner states. And this division that I think many of us would agree is very prominent in today's society. There's a lot of it's been intense. That's been my experience, at least recently. And, I think that that's our responsibility as individuals, is how do we start to create more union within our own selves? That reflection of the external world being a reflection of our ultimate internal division. And so for me in my life, I've really tried to take that to heart and be like, okay, if I want to see a more connected planet, if I want to be treated as a human being, well, how am I doing in my day to day? How am I not walking by, the homeless person on the street and just completely ignoring them? How am I actually looking them in the eyes and seeing them as a human being? And I think that that's the invitation that we all have, is how do we start to really think about what is the world that we want to see? And how can I, as an individual, start to embody that in my own life, knowing that you do matter, and that's how we're going to collectively create change in the world.
And I love that you stress that we all have a responsibility in this. And I think that that's a heavy part, because we are responsible for it. But I also think it's a positive and optimistic outlook, because going back to feeling small, I think a lot of people don't believe they have any control. Some maybe in their own life, but let alone in the direction of the world. So the fact that even, little old me in Fishers, Indiana, I can change the direction that things are going just by, being true to myself and bringing what I want to see to the world. And the reason I picked that quote is, congratulations on Anya Institute for Human Revolution being launched. You are, from what I could tell when we first met back at Future Proof, you were already being the change you wanted to see, but you took a bigger bet on doing that on yourself and being able to have a greater impact by launching the business, which obviously we're going to get into. So that's why when I saw that quote, I'm not gonna lie, I just said spiritual quotes, and I just started reading through what would be a good spiritual quote, because I know that we were going to go that direction. That was the one that jumped out because I already felt like you were doing that. And now you took a bigger step to actually help more people do it. It's one thing to be the change yourself, but if you can help others find that for themselves and then allow them to be the change, like I think that's really powerful.
Thanks, Justin. No, and I received that, and I completely agree. And I also think that that's like the beauty is that we are all, part of this collective universe, and we're all individually unique. And what, like to your point that you just mentioned around the fact of when we can help others also be the change that they wish to see in the world, we all come to life with our own unique experience and our own unique skill set. And I think the more that we can all honor that and see that and see the diversity that exists, between us, while simultaneously recognizing our interconnectedness, the more beautiful the world will be.
You come from the finance space. I'm still in the finance space, and you're still in the finance space to some regards. Like what we've talked about in these first few minutes is not typical financial advisor, financial space conversation. I'm curious, do you get a lot of DMs and private conversations from my peers in the profession diving into this area? Or is it really like you and I are one of the rare ones in the space?
It's funny, Justin, because it's true. I don't think that this is the typical financial conversation. And for many years, I worked in the financial world and didn't allow this side of myself to be seen. I didn't walk around the office talking about how I was meditating every day or the yoga teacher trainings I was in. It was more of a thing that I kept on the down low. But once I started to bring more of that, my full self into the workplace, into every single aspect of my life, it started to connect me with people who felt similarly, right? You, but also others. And yes, I do get a decent amount of DMs from people in finance who I would have maybe never thought saw the world in a similar way. And that was a huge light bulb for me. Like there's all of these little people and little pockets. And that for me was a huge moment of reckoning that we're all human beings. When I did my first sound bath at Future Proof in the financial world, I was terrified. I mean, it was just so different. And the judgment that could be around that and what would people think of me? And then I did it. And the reception was so positive. And I started to see how, wow, like, look, there's all of these other people that really resonate with this. And they're resonating with it, I think, because it's my authentic self. So they're resonating with me being in my authentic truth, but they're also resonating with it because at the end of the day, we are all human beings. We're all made up of the same stuff. And at our core of our cores, like we're all the same thing. And I think what we deeply desire as human beings is to feel seen and heard and loved. And that's what these spiritual practices do at the end of the day. You don't even have to call them spiritual. It's just that innate connection that we feel when we look into another human being's eyes and you feel accepted and you feel loved. I mean, that's what it's about. And it doesn't matter whether you're in finance or if you're in tech or if you're in operations or whatever field you're in, it's not about the work. It's about who you are as a human being.
I think well, first off, I was at that sound bath and it was awesome. And you inspired me to buy my own set of bowls. So I only have like 4 and I got them off of Amazon. So they're probably not even great, but I not only bought them, I used them in a series of talks that I gave 2 years ago. Like I think it was the second talk that I gave. It was the one where I was starting to talk a little bit more about spiritual stuff. So I did a sound bath to try to get the audience to kind of let go of any preconceived notions they may have about the woo side of things and just get them to drop in. And it was really, really cool. I haven't used them since, so I need to get back to getting, but it was only because of the experience at Future Proof with your sound bath. But I think what's really cool is, yes, we are all humans. I think that because there are certain roles that we have to play, this is where the authenticity becomes really important to me, that there are a lot of people in a variety of spaces. I pick on finance because that's where I live, that they believe these things, they have these experiences, and either they want to share them with others and you give them the permission because they at least know they can come to you to talk about it. I also think there are some people, and this is what I hope the podcast does sometimes, is that they get little like little pulls or little suggestions that there's like these other things that are going on, but they're afraid to explore it. And like when they have an experience like that, or they hear you talk about these things, it gives them permission to learn more. Like, I don't think that you and I are going to teach anybody anything today that they didn't already know. But I think what we might do is give them the permission to go explore and then learn new things. And I think that's really exciting. So I think that your presence before was, it gave a lot of people permission to explore this more or be more open with it. And the work that you're going to do, I think, will just help more people get to that. So I think that's pretty cool.
I love that reflection, and I completely agree. In many ways, I really see Anya as this space where we can collectively come together and allow for that openness and acceptance. And we're all constantly learning from each other and like picking up those little nuggets. And I'd also say that and I think we'll get into this in a minute, but like my journey has been so much about my own reflection of myself and like, how do I really understand who I am? And all of us are going through that journey, our own unique journey throughout the course of our lives. And so we pick up these little tidbits, whether it's a quote or a podcast we listen to. And I know that those little sparks can create these massive ripple effects, and you don't know what little thing that you're going to say, or like me doing the sound bath, I had no idea that you bought bowls from that, and how like cool is that created a ripple effect. And we all do that. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning about being the change that you wish to see, because you have no concept how like that one decision, that one event that we did, like what came from that. And some of the ripples you don't see, and you're not aware of, but you have to, you trust that when you're living in alignment with your truth, that those things are naturally coming. So it's beautiful.
I want to stay at that sound bath for one more moment. So that was kind of like a coming out moment, if you will, within the profession of sharing this personal side with the professional side. After that moment, did you get more permission to lean more into your truths when it came to work? And if so, how did you feel?
Yes, I would say when I look at my journey in finance, there's been so many ups and downs and all of that. Like questions of me wondering, why am I in this profession? And am I here for the money, or am I here for other reasons? And kind of leading up to that sound bath, when I had first stepped into this newer kind of role at Dimensional around Life Invested, that was an expression of me trying to integrate my worlds a bit more, because I had started a previous business, and I had kind of been in this place of a little bit of confusion. What am I going to do next? Why am I still here? And I really had this aha moment that money is this portal for you to be able to understand your own relationship with yourself, and that there really is this integration of life and investing and money and spirituality and all of these things, that they're not as dissimilar as we often think. And so, yes, absolutely. That sound bath at Future Proof was a coming out moment, I think, for me to be in a greater expression of my true self. And I think that journey has continued and is really kind of culminated with the launch of this company. And it's still very early on, but there's just I feel this massive sense of alignment. People have been asking, it's like, well, how do you feel? Are you stressed? Are you worried? Like, it's a big shift. And of course, you move through those emotions. But what's been fascinating for me is how grounded I feel, how disaligned I feel, how I'm just like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I fully trust what is going to unfold.
And I think when you find yourself in that aligned moment where you're supposed to be, like, the difficult things don't seem as difficult. So starting a business is stressful. There's a lot of things going on, and no doubt you felt stress, but I think that like when you're doing the thing you're supposed to be doing, that becomes a lot easier. And that's what people say, like, work doesn't feel like work, which allows you to pour so much into it. I had a thought I was wanting to come back to, but that little tangent took me away. So hopefully it will come back to, oh yes, before we get to Anya, everybody wants to hear about it. I want to get more into that. I'm interested to learn more about your journey into this more spiritual version of yourself, the meditation, the yoga. I know you have a bunch of certifications. Like, how did you stumble into it? Because those aren't things that most of us are taught. I'm trying to let my boys know about it now so they can have light years ahead of me. But how did you kind of come to understanding this? And then what was your kind of evolution on that side of things?
Well, that is such a gift, Justin. So credit to you for doing that. I always say that the greatest gift that my mom ever gave me was bringing me to my first yoga class. So I went to my first yoga class when I was a teenager, and it wasn't a big deal. I just kind of, dabbled in it a little bit. But when I started my first corporate job, 6 months in, I felt this sense of wondering whether this was all there was to life. I had looked at that like pinnacle moment, and you get into this fancy office, and I really at a young age, I was starting to question why and what I was really doing. And so I took my first yoga teacher training when I was 22. And that really started me down this path that I've been on for a decade. And it's come in waves, like I said. So it hasn't always been, full bore and full on. Life happened. And it was, at first, it was a very dividing thing for me. I felt like I had Bree yogi and in the dirt and like barefoot running around. And then I had Bree corporate in the business suit and in heels. And the integration of those and trying to reconcile that within myself, that division within myself, was a journey that took me, many years. But yoga really was this portal for me to start understanding who I really was. And I think that there's many people see yoga, I think, as the westernized version of yoga, which is like yoga pants and Lululemon and a very physical practice. But yoga really comes from a very, very deep lineage. And it comes from, at its core of core, this thing called Vedic philosophy. And from my study of Vedic philosophy and yoga, and then eventually Ayurveda, which is a sister science of yoga, all of those lineages and all of the study of those philosophies really helped me understand who I was and why I was here, what my purpose was, how I could uniquely serve the world, how I could feel healthier from my mind, body, and spirit, and how I could align everything in one way. And that really, it completely changed my life. It's been the most impactful thing in my life that's happened to me by far.
And we're going to come back to those because I bet a lot of people don't know what Ayurvedic medicine is. I didn't know until I stumbled across your content, what Vedic philosophy is like. I want to get high level stuff. Again, send people on their rabbit hole, but give them enough. But I want to come back to Anya because there's something on the website that I really love. And it said, we're entering a new era, one defined by growth, innovation, and conscious evolution. And the conscious evolution is what I really love. So tell me more about that quote, why that's on the website, and then we can dive into what exactly Anya is.
Kind of like we touched upon at the beginning, I think that we're in this interesting moment of time. And I trust the timing around all of this is that I think as a society, we are feeling a sense of collective heaviness. I know in LA, we just had all of these fires. There's kind of been a lot of natural disasters, some destruction, the political environment. There's just been a lot of like intensity, kind of mud, heaviness. We didn't get out, like COVID didn't happen too long ago. And so I think just as a society, we're kind of in this place of tension or mud. And we have this opportunity to choose, what way are we going to go? What type of society are we going to create? Who are we going to be as human beings? We also have AI coming on and all these tech innovations. So how are we going to work with that? What does that mean? And I believe that we just have this incredible opportunity to evolve in a more conscious way. We're always evolving. Every minute of every day, our cells are changing. We're waking up as new versions of ourselves every day. but which way we're going and how we're doing that, I think most often we are evolving in an unconscious manner. We're not really thinking about how all of these little decisions that we make on a daily basis are literally changing our makeup as human beings. They're changing our mind. They're conditioning our mind in certain ways. And so with Anya, it really is this invitation to take a step back and to consciously think about, who do I want to be as a human being? What do I want my life to be about? What am I dedicating all of this time and my energy and my resources and my money? What am I dedicating it to? And how can I start to bring more consciousness, more aliveness to the decisions that I'm making every single day so that I'm moving in the direction that I desire to go, and that collectively we start to move as a society, I think, in a more, harmonious and connected way to a better world.
I don't know if it's because I'm really interested in this and this is where I am in kind of my journey, but I do feel like there's like the collective conscious is rising. Mm-hmm. And it might be hard to see with like some of the things like the political stuff and things you've mentioned, but I think some of that stickiness in the mud is kind of like everybody like the masses leveling up. Mm-hmm. And I can't really explain why I think that, but some of it's like the DMs and the conversations with people you never would have imagined. Mm-hmm. But I just feel like there is a greater awakening going on, and I don't know what that means or what it looks like, but do you sense that as well? It kind of sounds like you did, but I don't.
Absolutely. I mean, the greatest portals for transformation are in the mud and in the stickiness. I mean, the greatest times of transformation in my life have come when I've been in the most pain. I mean, it's like the lotus flower. You're in the mud and in the stickiness. And what comes out of that, if you can wade through the mud, is a beautiful flower and a new existence. And I think that that's the time that we are in many ways, is like, okay, we've been in this mud and it's a little sticky, but there is, I do feel like a community of people who see the opportunity to chart a new path forward and to process kind of the pain and some of the destruction and say, hey, you know what? This is a learning experience and I want to be part of creating a life and creating a world that is going to be better for me and my future and for my kids' future. And that's really exciting because there's a ton of power in that.
I'm trying to figure out if we can hit those high levels of growth without having to be in the mud. Like I'm trying to figure out if like through awareness and understanding that like we have the ability to change, we can be the change, mm-hmm. all these things we talked about. If we can make more people aware, then more people can have this awakening and kind of raise their consciousness without having to go through the mud. I understand why the mud brings it out. I understand why when you hit rock bottom, you have nothing left but to shed everything and kind of rebuild new. Because I've shared with other podcasts, and it's something that I won't say I struggle with, but like there's not a lot of mud that I see on my story. Mm. And like sometimes I feel bad because like I didn't go through struggle, but there's a guy by the name of Hakim Tafari who he's out in LA, and he's been on Rich Roll's podcast, and I paid to have like a session with him. And he said mm-hmm. something that really stood out to me and changed my perspective around it. He said that like I shouldn't feel bad and apologize for the life that I've manifested. Because there are others who might be out there that don't have a lot of mud because that's just been their story to this point, but also that there are people who are in the thick of the mud and that they can see my story and see the possibility that you don't have to stay there. So that's one of the things I just think about a lot is there a really muddy situation coming down the road that I just don't know? Or if through my awareness and maintaining my alignment and kind of listening to my heart and navigating by what I think is my higher powers navigating me, that like maybe I can avoid that mud. I think sometimes the mud comes when we ignore the callings, and like the universe speaks louder and louder and louder, and eventually it's super, super loud. It's got to get your attention. And that's when the really crummy stuff happens, I think sometimes. And I always, and the final thought of that is my ramble, I feel bad, like I'm reluctant to say those things because I don't want it to come across as I think anybody who's going through the mud chose it intentionally or deserves it. Like that's not it. But I just wonder if there's a way we can avoid that by being more aware as we're kind of going through.
I love that you brought that up, Justin, because a huge part of my desire to create Anya and like part of the mission that I just feel in my bones is one of my, like, the purpose, the reason I'm here is to think about, like, how do we at a younger age start to bring more awareness to help people avoid the mud. And I don't necessarily really see it as we're looking to avoid the mud. I mean, things happen in life. We don't have control of what's going to happen in our life, but we do have control of our relationship to the situation. And I think that that's what I've seen along my path is, like, I went through some big health things at a young age, and that was very, very transformative in terms of the way that I saw my relationship to my body, and just changed a lot of habits in my life to reattune myself and to get myself in a better rhythm. But essentially, I don't think that we as a society do a good job of educating people at a young age around who we are and how we function and how our minds work. We're taught calculus in high school, but we aren't taught about how our nervous system functions. We're not taught how to meditate. We're not taught how to manage our money. And so this pipe dream that I've had that I hope to bring to fruition as a part of Anya at some point is to teach meditation alongside financial education in schools throughout the country. Because if you got that education at a young age, then guess what? You would probably be much more prepared to be able to navigate whatever comes at you. And so even if some mud slides in, you may not be getting caught in the mud and go down this entire spiral that, like, derails your life for multiple years. You're able to have a better perspective on it and to move through it. And so that's really what I see, in my own story is, as my awareness has increased, as I've gotten more tools to navigate different situations, instead of something that a challenge pops up and it completely, like, destroys you, that doesn't happen anymore. You're like, oh, wow, okay, this thing came into my life, not exactly what I expected. How do I want to work with that? And I also really credit you. There's nothing wrong with not having a bunch of mud. Like, it goes back to the comparison, right? We are all on our own journey. Like, your journey is completely different than mine. And there's so much beauty in that. And there's so much that I can learn from you and your story and how you've navigated life, and vice versa. And I think that when we can all take that view on each other, there's not this competition, not this, like, I've been through more shit than you have, and so I've had to weather more. It's like, no, you're on your journey, I'm on mine. How do we learn from one another? How do we collectively come together?
Hey there, sorry for the quick interruption, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware that the Keep Pursuing series has returned, and since this is February, I'm getting ready to give the second talk. Now, it's going to go down on February 20th. If you can't make it, it'll show up on the podcast, it'll show up here on YouTube as well, but I just want to let you know that every month I'm going to be giving a talk for the entire year. So the first month was called Authentic Life, the second month is going to be called Aligned, and I have a whole series of talks for the end of the year. If you're local to Fishers, head on over to justincastelli.io. You'll be able to find all the information there. You can also find it on my Instagram account at Justin Castelli. That's JUS10 CASTELLI. But would love to see you there as we talk about the authentic life, how to get there, how do we align spirit, mind, body, and money, how do we live a life more true to us, and why should we be doing it? Tons of topics to cover, and every talk ends with 15, 20, 30 minutes, maybe even, of a conversation with those in attendance. And honestly, that's my favorite part. I love giving the talk, but I love having the conversation with those in attendance. So the Keep Pursuing series is on. We're getting ready to have month 2. We'll be doing it every month for the end of the year. If you have some more questions, feel free to hit me up. You can email me, DM me, find me, ask those questions, but I hope to see you there. All right, let's get back to this awesome conversation with Bree. I'm glad you said not avoid. I say avoid. I don't really mean avoid. Like, I would never try to avoid going through something that I need to go through. I think it's more to your point of not letting it grow into more. Because I can look back and see, like, little things that, for whatever reason, my makeup is, I tilt toward optimism, silver lining. Like, let's process the emotion of being pissed or sad or whatever it is, and then let's find the silver lining. Because my belief is, if I stay there, like, more is coming. Like, I've known about the law of attraction my whole life with nobody telling me. Like, I don't.
It's amazing.
Like, it's in those little those little things I've discovered the last few years, like, have changed the way I think about, like, I grew up Catholic. So like, you die, you go to heaven. That's it. Like, now I'm like, I read some more Eastern religion. I'm like, maybe we do have multiple lives. And maybe the reason I'm so optimistic is in a past life, that was the lesson my soul had to learn. And I went through some real shit to realize, hey, your mind can control it. So now, like, that's in me and who I am. So I'm glad you said that, because I don't want to encourage people to shy away from doing tough things because there might come some mud. It's just, don't get stuck in there longer than you have to.
100%.
All right. So I want to hit into the, Ayurvedic medicine, the Vedic philosophy, just high level. What is it? And if explaining how you got to discover it is helpful, share that as well, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so Vedic philosophy is a 5,000-year-old philosophy. It's originated in India, and it's rooted in these texts called the Vedas. And the word Veda means knowledge. And these texts really contain some of these universal truths around how the world functions, this dharmic law. How does the world work, and how can we as individual human beings align ourselves with some of these universal principles? And the Vedas is really the root of yoga and Ayurveda. So for me, I learned about Vedic philosophy through my study of yoga, which I think in today's society in the West, that's how most people, if you're familiar with it, would come to know it, just studying the history of yoga. And what's fascinating about Vedic philosophy and yoga and Ayurveda in general is it really starts to create this picture of how do we fundamentally understand ourselves, who we are, why we're here, and how we function. So yoga, the word yoga comes from the root word yuj, which means to yoke or to merge. And yoga is really the science of self-realization. So most people, again, think about yoga as this physical practice. Well, that's just a very small sliver of yoga, very, very small sliver. And really, the practice of yoga is a practice of understanding who you really are as a human being, and this practice of merging with your true self, coming into union with this universal consciousness, or however you want to kind of frame that in your own practice. And so that's yoga. And then Ayurveda is one of the oldest healing systems in the world. And it's said that almost every medical system is based, Ayurveda was kind of first, and then all of these other, things like traditional Chinese medicine, but even Western medicine kind of came from those original roots. And so Ayurveda means, Ayur means life, and Veda again means knowledge. So Ayurveda is the science of life. And Ayurveda is a holistic healing system. So it helps you think through your unique makeup as a human being and how you can start to eat, on a very physical level. What foods are most supportive for you? What types of meditation or things are good for your mind? And how can you start to align your life and do daily practices that are going to help you make the most out of who you are. So to give you a little bit more tangible, I think, example of how that works, in Ayurveda, it works very differently than how we think in Western medicine. I don't think that we're kind of taught to think about ourselves as our own unique constitution, but that's how Ayurveda works. So it really looks as you as the individual, Justin, what are these elements that you are made up of as a human being? And at a high level, there's these different doshas and these different elements, but just to give to, like you said, just to drop a little nugget for me, I have I have a lot of fire in my constitution. Can be a pretty intense person. I have a lot of energy. I'm also pretty creative. I have a lot of air in my constitution as well. Well, early on in my career, I was, drinking a ton of coffee and eating spicy food and running a bajillion miles a day and doing hot yoga. And so one of the fundamental principles in Ayurveda is like increases like and opposites balance. So if I have a lot of fire in my constitution, And then I'm doing all of this fiery stuff, hot yoga, caffeine, alcohol, all of the good things. I mean, it completely throws your body out of whack. So I was starting to experience things like a ton of stress, acne, hormonal imbalances, and all of that. I didn't realize that that's what was happening. You know, I was going to Western doctors and trying to figure out, you know, how do I realign my hormones, and I was hitting all of these dead ends. And when I really found Ayurveda and I started practicing and integrating a lot of these Ayurvedic principles, my body healed itself naturally. No drugs, food, lifestyle practices. And to me, that's the power of Ayurveda. There's so much there. There's so much to get into it all. It's not just, not just a physical aspect of it, but it really does. It aligns your mind, your body, and your spirit, and it sets you up in this way to optimize your energy. So for me, that's why I love Ayurveda so much, is like, I have big aspirations in life. I'm running a business. I want to have as much vitality as I can. And living by Ayurvedic practices helps bring your body into alignment with the natural cycles and with things that are really supportive for you, which allows you to really embody your full potential.
I feel like when I remember, I can't remember if it was an Instagram post or it was on your website that got me, like, I went barely into the rabbit hole. I'm going to go in more now just off of this. But how do we figure out, like, if we have fire or air? Like, I felt like it was a pretty easy way to find it, right?
There's a lot of little quizzes that you can take online. Like if you Google Ayurveda and dosha, you can go into these, and there's 3 different doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And those are made up of different elements. So you can go take a little quiz online, and you can get, in a general sense, you know, which one you are. I think as human beings, we all like to figure out which little box we are and which little quiz. I want to know what I am. So you can certainly do that, but also you can go see an Ayurvedic doctor. And I think Ayurvedic medicine is starting to, I wouldn't say it's emerging. I mean, there's a few more in the West. It's coming about a bit more. And
it'll be here in like 15 years in Indiana, because like we're in the Midwest, we're so far behind.
Exactly. But I think like that's a huge, that's an opportunity. I mean, my Ayurvedic doctor, Dr. Nabodi, and I've seen others as well, Martha in Santa Monica, they've completely changed my life. They've been some of my greatest teachers and mentors, and the whole system of working with an Ayurvedic counselor, which I am as well, compared to the Western way of working with doctors, is completely, different. They have become some of the people that I'm closest to in my life. And I mean, total mentorship, understanding of every aspect of my life. And in my opinion, you need that. I think that that's a huge kind of disconnect with what the medical system in the West is, that there's not an understanding of what's happening holistically. And if you don't have that understanding of what's happening holistically, we're just constantly treating the symptom versus actually treating the root cause of what's going on. So I could have, in my own healing journey, got on different hormones or birth control or whatever the thing is, and not realize that, no, I was actually just stressing my body out and maxing my body out. And if I had continued down that path, that was going to have, a ton of other health effects down the line.
So are you bringing this to work at Anya? Are you trying to integrate all this stuff together?
Yes, I am. I mean, it's fascinating. In Western science, particularly in functional medicine now, they are starting to prove what Ayurveda really preaches. I went to this YPO conference about a year ago and was hearing from the top doctors like Andrew Huberman and Mark Hyman and Peter Attia, and all of them were really preaching Ayurvedic principles. Align your body with the sun, right? And start to attune, wake up when the sun comes up, eat your biggest meal in the middle of the day, wind down when the sun goes down. The benefits of open meditation. Angie Huberman was talking about the benefits of that for creativity and neuroplasticity. And so I think it's really cool that we're at this inflection point where Western medicine and functional medicine is starting to see the parallels with the ancient wisdom. And so through Anya, that's really what we're looking to do, is bridging those two things and really recognizing the integration of the whole human. Like, Justin, I know for you to kill it in your business, we want to optimize your health. Because if you are the healthiest version of yourself and you have the most energy possible, you're going to be able to make the greatest impact in the world. And if you feel sluggish and depressed and stressed, that's going to show up in your work with your clients. And so that is a very, very core part of Anya. So in every program, are we getting into like the depths of Ayurveda? No, not necessarily, but the fundamental principles are certainly, woven throughout.
So tell me more about the programs. Like, if somebody comes to the website and they're looking, like, what would they do as a member of like your community?
Yeah. So we're just starting out. I mean, we launched, just launched last week, and Anya, we are going to be charting, we're going to be, I guess, spanning a number of different segments. But the first program that we are offering is for the financial advisory space. That's where my background is in, but also where I think that there's just massive opportunity. So the first program that we're running is called Revolutionary Wealth, and it's all around helping advisors really embody a lot of these practices in their own lives, but also helping them really reimagine how they work with their clients and how they bring some of these more integrative practices into their work with their clients to redefine, what does wealth really mean? And how do we start to align monetary wealth with your purpose and create this, full change, not just wealth accumulation, more dollars in the bank account. And so that's more specifically for financial advisors. And we're going to be charting a new certification called the Integrative Wealth Advisor.
I saw that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Justin, is I'm sure you've felt this as well, but what I have, really seen in the financial world is there's been this movement to like want to bring more of this into the people's practices. And you've been a huge leader, I think, in that space, which has been really cool to just watch how you've been doing that and the way you've been messaging it. And so props to you for doing that. But the question that I hear most from advisors is, how do I do it? How do I do this? Like, I'm interested in it. I believe in it. It feels aligned with me, but how do I do it? And I think that there's really kind of two prongs to that how, which is one, how do I do it tangibly? Like, what questions do I ask my client, and what framework do I use? And how do I take some of these things that feel a little ethereal and make it really real? And then the second part of the how is, how do I, as a advisor, feel comfortable holding the space for this type of conversation, which maybe I haven't, been trained on before. And that's really what we're looking to do through Revolutionary Wealth, is do both of those things, and having the certification that you are embodying it yourself. We're going to give you the tools and help you think through how you want to use those tools in your practice, but also the lived experience of the confidence to be able to hold space for someone else in that way.
It's the lived experience is going to be the key. Like that for me, when I went through Kinder's Evoke, it was the experience of Evoke that, like, I was just going to go through the 1 week class and that was it. And then when I experienced it, I was like, no, this is what I need to do. But I had a cool thought that I want to just point out, like, how awesome the universe is sometimes. So what I heard you say, the work you want to do with Revolutionary Wealth is you want to help advisors be the change they want to see. Like, how do I do it with my clients? Well, you be that change so your clients can see. And what you described is not very different from what I'm trying to. I look at it as you're doing something very similar to me. It sounds like you may have more interest in what you're doing than what I do currently, but I look at like my Aligned Life Plus relationship, which was born out of Life Design Plus. No one is asking me for it. Like, I'm building it in the belief that people will come. And I'm stubborn enough to believe that they will. And I also like to, I wouldn't say that I'm a disruptor, but I like to like do things differently. So for me, that's really exciting. And like I said, it sounds like you have advisors that want the help. So you've got a little bit of a head up on me from what I want to do. But I think it's brilliant that, like, from what I can see, it sounds like phase one is lean into the audience that you already have. advisors. And then you get to help other advisors help their clients, which like your thumbprint goes out. But then what's going to end up happening, my guess is eventually it will move beyond advisors and non-advisors come to Anya because like it has enough time and word of mouth spreads. Like that's kind of like where I've gone back and forth and why I have Life Design Plus and Aligned Life. Like to me, I look at Life Design Plus is for the advisor community, for the advisors that are like, hey, you know what? My business doesn't really align with who I am. And I really don't know who I am. Like, let's figure these things out, and less on a group scale, more on a one-to-one. And I leave them both open because right now that's the work I want to do. And the only difference is Align Life Plus has financial planning embedded in it, which I think is for like, for lack of a better term, consumers. Life Design Plus has no financial planning. Hey, that's great for advisors. We don't need to do your financial plan. Just let me help you figure out who you are, what that calling is, and then let's look at your business and how do we realign things there so they're aligned. And then I think that attracts the people you want. So it gives me, I share all of that to say, it gives me confidence that I'm heading in a good direction, knowing that you and I are walking very parallel paths that are very close to each other.
I completely agree. And that is certainly the intention, with Anya, is that we've got Revolutionary Wealth that we're launching. And then in the fall, we're planning on launching a human mastery program, which is going to be broader for professionals really across the spectrum. Because, in my own journey, I think that we like to try and put things in a box, right? Like personal growth over here and then professional growth over here. And really it's all just about human development. And so both Revolutionary Wealth and this human mastery program are really focused on human development. It's all integrated. That's one of the biggest things that I learned in my own journey was that when I started to embody a lot of the practices that I was doing through yoga, I started to become more confident in myself. I was able to present in a more effective manner. I was able to garner respect from people who were much, more senior than me. And that's because I was living in authenticity with my truth. And I was speaking in a way, in a grounded knowing of who I really was. And so I think that that's, really what we're trying to do with both of those. And then we're also this spring launching a Anya meditation method, because meditation's just been a massive, massive part of my life. So I'm very excited to bring more of that into the world and to really chart I'd say like a new version of what meditation can really be.
Well, when that drops, I'm going to need like a 15 or 20 minute mini episode because I want to learn, like, what is your style? What's the different way? Because for a long time, I tried meditation and I used like the Western apps like Headspace and Calm, and they didn't really work for me. And then I tried just doing it by myself, but I had the Western idea that, meditation is cross legs and, nothing coming in your mind, and I could just never get quiet. And then like when I went through my little realignment of myself, that's when meditation started to take. And I did transcendental meditation training, but I don't really practice it in the way you're supposed to. I've found my own unique way that works for me, but I want to explore different styles to see like what may help me go further and deeper, because there's so many different ways to do it, which is crazy, but then also not crazy at the same time.
No, I think that's beautiful. And that's exactly the philosophy that I prescribe to as well, actually, that meditation is really a state of being. And that, I've actually may sound crazy, but a lot of this company has been created through meditation. The majority of presentations I even, created at Dimensional or past corporations has been through meditation. And we can actually learn to create through a meditative state. And that's a massive opportunity, because if you, like for me, meditation is really the foundation of my life. My morning routine is, and all of that. But when you start to align yourself with this flow state or whatever you want to call it, there's really so much power in being able to receive and to listen, and I think it's one of the biggest tools to begin aligning your life. And so, yes, we can chat more about it when it's all out there, but I'm very excited about the possibility and just all that can come from that.
Awesome. I want to come back to the finance component of things, because I talk about the alignment of spirit, mind, body, and the money's at the end. You've mentioned it, and there's another quote on the website that I think if it's on the website, or maybe it was on your personal one. Somewhere you said, finance is about more than money. It's about creation, freedom, heart, and expansion. So with that, I kind of want to talk about how you mentioned money is as a portal to be able to like express ourselves and explore. Kind of dive deeper into what you mean by that.
I mean, money really is this fascinating thing because I think most of us in the Western world at a young age, again, we see this definition of what success looks like. And I think a lot of that is tied to money, like around financial status and having certain material goods and material things. And I think there's a big invitation to ask yourself, like, well, what really is success? What are you really looking for in life? Why do you want that big house or the boat? And nothing's wrong with that. And even like going back to Vedic philosophy, Artha, one of the aims of life is around being able to have comfort. We need that. We need money. But I think it's about reshaping our relationship with money and really asking ourselves, is money the end goal or is money the means to an end? And by creating value in life, like money is just a means of exchange. So if I'm living in my purpose and I'm serving others in the world, I receive money for doing that. That's how our economy works. And then I can take that money as a resource and invest it into things, whether it's in the stock market or whether it's in a variety, self-development or whatever it may be. And I think that that's really the opportunity that we have as a broader financial industry is to, again, bring more consciousness around money, bring more awareness to what it is, to unpack our own stories that we have around money, because there are many. Money is incredibly emotional, and our relationship with it is shaped from a very, very young age. And then really begin to align all of our resources, but particularly our money, with what we actually want to create in our life. And that's very different than someone else. Like, people may look at what I've done with my money and think I'm absolutely crazy. I've self-funded 2 businesses. I've lost a heck of a lot of money in self-funded business as well. And some people may be like, that's insane. Like, why would you do that? But for me, it's been the right choice. And that, I think, is our opportunity, is to really start as financial advisors, as leaders in the industry, to really start questioning how we have thought about money, and then begin to help people actually create better lives for themselves, which does not solely mean just accumulation of money. It means aligning your resources with what you actually want to create and the impact you want to have in your life.
How'd you know self-funding the businesses, as crazy as it is, how'd you know that was right?
I think for me, I mean, the first business I went down a few years ago was, I was still working full time, but I started a clothing and swimwear company for women. And it was all around custom sizing, and I spent tens of thousands of dollars in it. And I think I knew even from the get-go that it was going to be this massive learning experience. One of my mentors, when I started it, she was like, regardless of what happens, you're basically giving yourself an MBA, right? A real world MBA instead of going to get your MBA. And she was right. I mean, I learned more from that experience and the emotion behind it and the stress and how I had to integrate all of that within myself. And yeah, I mean, I think it would have taken me decades to honestly learn that. So it was a crash course in that. And now creating Anya and doing the same thing again and self-funding it again, I have learned and am trying to build it in a completely different way from the lessons that I've learned. And for me, that's just, at least thus far, been the right choice, is that I have chosen to invest my financial resources in something that I deeply believe in, which is myself, but also a greater vision. I mean, Anya has a vision that is far beyond me. It's not about me. It's about creating a collective that can really create, massive change in our industry, but also beyond. And to me, there's no higher, purpose. There's nothing better that I could do with my resources than that. And so that brings me great peace.
Do you worry about money? Because I think that a lot of people, like, because of how we've grown up with money and we see it as the paper and, the digital money that we have now, like, we see it in that form. But in doing that, like, do you worry about money, or do you just, like, how to make money, but you just trust that everything is going to work itself out? Kind of, how do you view it personally?
I certainly view money as a tool, and not as something that I want to just simply hoard and accumulate. So I definitely view it as a tool, and I also view it as something that is neutral. So I think that there's just a lot of emotional charge behind money, right? And some people are like, money is bad and it's evil and it causes all of these negative things. And then to some people, I think money is the end all be all. And it's the goal of life is to amass as much of it as possible. And to me, at its core, money is just a tool of exchange, just a piece of paper. Mercer used to have a quote, I don't know if it's still on their website, that money without meaning is just paper. And to me, that's what it is. It's just a thing. And we are the ones that create the charge behind it. So we can either funnel our money towards positive things and have a positive relationship with it, or it can be this complete stressor. And I also don't want to dismiss that, like, we need money. You need money to live today. And we do have an inequality crisis in many ways. And we have a lot of people out there who are struggling to make ends meet and who maybe don't have the privilege to be asking some of these questions. And so I also think that we have to think about, how do we start to solve some of those challenges? And that's something that I'm interested in getting into more with the creation of Anya, is how do we start to distribute resources? How do we help bring more education to lower income communities? How do we start to really empower people through the means of education so that they can live better lives? But to get back to the core of your question, do I get stressed about money? Certainly, I've been stressed about money. And you better believe, when I was going through the whole thing with my first business, oh my God, it tore me apart at some times. I lost so much money. I was waking up in the middle of the night, completely stressed. And it was a big reckoning, because I was like, this is not how this is meant to be. And this is not how I want to live. And this is not in alignment with who I am. And that really caused me to, reflect more and to think about, okay, well, what really is this thing? What is my relationship with this thing? How do I start to unpack some of the beliefs that I personally have been holding around money that maybe aren't so supportive for me, that I've, gathered from my parents and even generations beyond and society as a whole. And now I feel like I'm in this place where I have a very good understanding of what my relationship is with money and how I want to utilize it. But I've also created a lot of structure in my life. I have a money date with myself on every Sunday, and I have a lot of structure around that. And, I'm very structured with my time. I have a very, very scheduled daily routine. And that to me creates freedom in my life. And I think money is the same way. One of the things, before I started Anya was building my trust back in myself from that first company, because I was like, I didn't trust myself with the way that I allocated my capital. And I had to rebuild that trust back in myself and to create systems to put into place for me to say, you know what, you trust yourself again, so you can do this now. So, yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's an important story. And I've talked about money stories I've had. The one I had for a long time was I had a fear of making more money a goal, because I felt like that was greedy. But then the way I was able to unpack it was going back to reflecting on it, which I think is important. I hope that from this part of the conversation, people who are still here with us watching or listening will reflect on their views of money. Because once I realized that the reason I want to make more money has nothing to do with me and my family, it's to be able to go do good things with that money, then that's not greedy. I'm not doing it because I want to buy more clothes and whatever. I want to do it so I can invest in people, I can help people and do good things with it. So once I realized that, I was like, well, I should go try to make as much money as possible, because the more I make, the more I can do good things with. And yeah, maybe I take some of that and we do a cooler vacation or something, but that's not the motivation. So I wouldn't have got to that realization, which was very freeing, if I hadn't taken the time to reflect on how I view money and talk through it. So I appreciate you sharing that, because money's personal and not everybody likes to talk about it. So hopefully that will encourage somebody to reflect on how they view money.
Absolutely.
So My final question in this, and you've kind of touched on it, but I want to get kind of a clear vision of what you hope Anya becomes. Like when you look back in 20 years, like what do you hope Anya has accomplished, and what does it look like?
It's a funny question because I think that often people probably lay out, here's the 5-year plan, here's the 10-year plan, here's the 20-year plan, and this is what it's going to look like. And that's not how I've been building this or how I desire to operate it. I have a strong vision and mission behind it. I want to really revolutionize the way that we as a collective, think about life and what it means to be human beings, and how do we create a more conscious and harmonious and connected and enlightened way of living and moving through the world. But I am so open to how that is going to manifest. I know we're starting with education, and we're starting with training and really experience. That's a huge part of Anya, is experiential learning, coming to retreats, being in community with one another, because we're not here to tell each other what to do. I didn't learn through that. I learned through the embodied experience of it. And I don't know with Anya, I don't know in 20 years what this thing can be. And I am so open to that. I don't want to confine it to a box and it needs to be this way. I want to every day show up with my fullest heart and with a full receptivity of being in service to a higher vision and a higher mission, and trust that it will unfold exactly as it's meant to be. And I have full confidence that if I lead with that integrity, it will attract people that are in alignment with that same type of integrity or desire to create that alignment in their life. And I know that it will create magic, because when we can collectively get in a room and create space for that type of openness, I don't think I can fully imagine the type of world that we'll be living in. And that's one of the things that gives me chills when I think about this revolutionary wealth, program and our founding cohort of, I have met so many incredible people in our industry, like you and others, who have so much heart and so much soul. And I don't think that the external world, like the average person out there, thinks about finance in that way. And what happens when we all come together and we feel into that, and then we start to do that and we bring it back into our communities, just like you are, and you hold these, they hold these sessions and all of this stuff around aligned life, and your heart is on fire and people feel that from you, and you're changing people's lives every single day. And then we're all doing that on a collective basis. I mean, the impact of that is, it's incomprehensible. I mean, you can't put a dollar figure on it. You can't put a number on it. And that's what I am most excited about.
I'm so glad you answered it that way, because once you started off, I knew where you were going. And I thought to myself, why did I even ask that question? Because I asked it in a way that I don't even believe. And I recorded a podcast with my dad earlier today. We do it on Life Design Plus, but I told him, Dad, this is going to be your podcast now. And I talked about this daily note I wrote a week ago about compounding authenticity, and that how do we get to our future authentic version of ourselves that we hold in our head? It's by living every day authentic to who we are that day. Don't get so caught up on where we want to go that you feel like you're not living your authentic life, because that's down the road. And the whole point of it was live each day. And then the build upon it is there will be things between now and the future. So now and 20 years for Anya, that we can't even imagine as a possibility, because we haven't experienced what's going to come down the road that's going to give you a new idea and take a different direction. Right. So why I asked the question that way, I don't know, and I'm embarrassed. So I'm glad you answered that way. You put me in my place, because I asked a question as a podcast host trying to do a good job hosting a podcast, and asked a question that wasn't really authentic to who I was. So I thought the answer was great, and I will never ask that question again that way, because it doesn't really align with me. As soon as you went, I was embarrassed. I was like, why did I ask it that way?
No, I don't think so. I don't feel that way at all. I mean, I always think about it as I think about it as it's important to have a vision for your life. Like that's the summit of the mountain, right? And it's important to keep an eye on the vision, the eye on the purpose, the higher goal. But it's also really important to just be present in the day to day. And so it's really like working with both of those in the duality of that, of like, how do I just show up every single day and, ask how I can be of the greatest service, but how am I also moving in the direction of that higher vision? And I think that when we can start to do that every single day, and we're starting to live our life in that way, if we don't have the summit and we don't have the vision, then we're kind of wandering aimlessly, which is not helpful. But when we get too attached to this is exactly how the summit has to look, then we start making decisions and closing ourselves off to opportunities that we're not even aware of, just like you said. So no, thanks, Justin. It's just been such a pleasure.
That's the key takeaway. Don't get too fixated, not just because it might be the wrong image, but that the being closed off and missing the signs from the universe or the introduction or the phone call you should make that you don't, because like you just never know. So that was great. Where can I send everybody so they can find more out about Anya and find you?
Well, feel free to connect with me on social media, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Breanna Rae Blaney, and then check us out. We're brand new, just excited to connect with more people and, like I said, collaborate, see what's going to happen, and see what we can co-create together. So feel free to come to our website at the Anya Institute. Email us at hello@anya.com, and we're just excited. I think it's the beginning of a beautiful journey, and to the extent anything I shared resonated with you, I would just love to connect with you. So just thanks again, Justin, for all of the things that you're doing. I have personally just been inspired by you and love your daily notes. I've been receiving them for a number of years now, and I think it's just really beautiful how you have chosen to speak from a place of clarity. And I know I can only imagine how challenging that has been at times, and maybe how you felt judgment or, it's just like doing something like that in the financial space where it is not the norm is edgy, and I've seen it, and it's been really, really cool to watch. So just thank you for being an inspiration for me, and I know many in our industry.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'm super excited about Anya and what all you're doing. I'm excited to have another ally in the profession, moving people in the same direction. And no doubt we'll have to find some ways to collab above and beyond just podcasts and other things. But I do want to have you back on the meditation thing, because I personally want to learn. So we'll share with everybody else. And if there's anything I can do to support you and Anya and the efforts, obviously let me know, because I'm a big fan. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Thanks, Justin. I really appreciate it. It means so much.